Hello, everyone, and welcome to Anime Initiative, the anime-focused segment of Comic Book Nation, where you get all the geeky and nerdy news that you need. I'm your host, Megan Peters, along with my co-workers and good friends, Nick Valdez and Evan Valentine. How you guys doing?
Howdy, everybody.
Good. Hey, everybody. Hey.
Hello. Well, we have obviously so much anime to talk about. We say this every week, but we're always nervous. And then the anime gods provide, and they give us some of the strangest, if not also the smelliest news possible to talk about. So basically, we're here to talk about all things anime and otaku. We're going to touch upon Yu-Gi-Oh! We're going to touch upon Hatsune Miku, who is my queen. We're going to talk Avatar: Last Airbender, and we're also going to talk about Dan Harmon and his involvement with the One Punch Man live action adaptation. So let's get this started with, and I'm gonna go ahead and pitch this one straight to Nick because he was adamant that we talked about this on the show this week. Yu-Gi-Oh! Is in the headlines, not for the anime, not for the manga, not even necessarily for the trading cards, but it is in the news, unfortunately, because of its odor. And I will let Nick explain from there.
so there was a post that had gone viral about a woman needed to be like just overwhelmed by the smell of a Yu-Gi-Oh tournament, and unfortunately, that's kind of been like the open secret of the Yu-Gi-Oh fandom for the last it recently celebrated like its 25th or so anniversary, and that's kind of been the story since then. Like it's kind of unfortunate. There have been straight rules, tournament rules placed in the past that ask people to practice proper hygiene when when playing Yu-Gi-Oh, and that's kind of unfortunately that is the case. It's troublesome because it's a thing we all understand, but also it's like you can't really say this to someone's face, right? Like if you can say this to a loved one, you can say this to a friend, you can say this to like a coworker, like, yo, you smell, you really need to like check yourself and figure that stuff out. But if you tell, like, you can't really walk up to a stranger and be like, yo, you have a very distinct odor, and it's making it so bad that I can't even think about Yu-Gi-Oh.
Yeah, so for some context for this, so obviously this event happened in Japan, and it was a it wasn't a sanctioned tournament. It was just kind of a local event in Japan that happened. And basically the entire thing went viral after this tweet appeared from from social media. It was from one of the people at the tournament who, identified himself as a man and said that, they hadn't gone to a Duel Masters tournament yet. They got there. Is it Duel Masters or Master Duel?
Duel
Well,
Masters.
it's Master Duels. No,
Master
Duel
Duels.
Masters is a competing card show series. So
That's what I thought. That I always get them mixed up. So, anyways, this game was going on. They met this woman who they said that this was their first Yu-Gi-Oh event, that they'd been playing this game. They wanted to come to a public event. And then as this man recalled on Twitter, they were playing, they had some great matches, and they noticed that this woman immediately and abruptly left. And they believed that this woman chose to leave the Yu-Gi-Oh event because she was being crushed, that she was just being absolutely, dogpiled on in terms of, playing games, that her life points were just dinging into the red zone. and basically this tweet said, when women come into the Yu-Gi-Oh space, like, let's treat them nicely. It's not nice to let them win, but like, if that's what needs to happen, that's fine. If I'm facing a dude though, I'm going to crush him. And basically that tweet went viral, and then the woman in question, provided proof and said, "It's not that I was sad, or it's not that I was doing poorly in this event. The smell was so bad." And in one tweet, in a follow-up tweet, she said, "The smell was no joke. I was going to get sick." And so, obviously her comeback, yeah, the last time I checked, like 30 million shares, like absolutely ridiculous. And it's, it's a hilarious headline, but like you also are kind of just like, you don't want to like box in the Yu-Gi-Oh fandom to this
You don't.
thing, because like that's not a fair thing to be like, oh, all Yu-Gi-Oh fans smell. Like, no, I love Yu-Gi-Oh. I pride myself in hygiene. So like it's not that. The problem is there's just I feel like especially in the years post-pandemic, there's become such a lack of awareness of public etiquette. I say this as somebody who goes to a lot of concerts. Um, People have just like lost their minds. Like they don't like they have forgotten how to act in public. So I feel like it's not just a Yu-Gi-Oh issue. It's just so unfortunate that there has been so many instances of this happening within the fandom at either tournament or public events that literally Konami has a rule addendum in like the tournament guide that says like you must practice proper hygiene, which is crazy to me.
Yeah, I mean, like I have real world memories of this. This is why I say it's sort of like an open secret. Like it's just something that we all just kind of acknowledge that, there are some smelly duelists out there, and it's not like part of their strategy. It's not like that guy from Dragon Ball whose whole deal was that he stank so bad, and like his fighting technique was stink fingers and like stuff like that. Right. So, it's not to that extent, but that's the thing. And it's unfortunate. Like I could speak to moments in my past where it unfortunately has been Yu-Gi-Oh plays, and I know we don't want to do blanket statements, but this is just kind of like, well, you got
It's
to
kind of
take
where
care
we're
of
at.
yourselves. Yeah,
I mean,
you
I'll
just
say this. I mean, I've been to a number of, professional competitive Yu-Gi-Oh events. I've done this as well for the One Piece trading card game, which absolutely slaps if you've not tried it. And I've also done this for Pokemon. I've been to Worlds for Pokemon, in the past. And I will say that I have personally never experienced this. Um, the only bad trading card experience I ever had competitively, and I mean, I will caveat this by saying this was more than a decade ag I mean, this was maybe like 2 decades. I mean, this was a long time ago, was when I tried to, attend my first Magic: The Gathering event. That one at this point, the community is lovely, and I'm not besmirching it. It is great these days. But, like, 15 years ago, woof. It was a bad experience for me. Not in terms of smell, other things. But, yeah. I just poor Yu-Gi-Oh, right?
yeah. I
I
mean,
would I would like
yeah.
I would like to examine this from another perspective.
Oh,
Are
no.
the smelly duelists coming up with the perfect strategy to win their games? I don't
Listen,
know,
hey,
because
Look, this is
maybe.
what Naruto did against Kiba, remember? We can all remember this. It is a tried and true anime practice.
if if you are facing an opponent and you haven't showered in a week, maybe that odor will be able to stop them from pulling that pot of greed that they need in order to summon Exodia. Who
Yeah.
knows? Who knows? Maybe that's how it works.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's just at the end of the day, you just gotta take care of yourself, people. You just make sure to like, just take the time to. I know sometimes it's hard, especially post COVID. Sometimes it is tough to drag yourself out of the bed and do these little things like keeping up with your hygiene. But if because you want to focus more on the good stuff, the stuff you like. You want to play Yu-Gi-Oh, you want to watch Yu-Gi-Oh instead of shower, because that's 10-15 minutes away from Yu-Gi-Oh. I get it, but also you just got to do it for your better health and for the health of everyone around you. You just have to do it.
Yeah, that's it. I think that's a good place to cement the conversation. Just take care of yourself. Like
Yeah.
it's just it is hard, whether it just be you're busy, you have depression. There's a many things that can make it very difficult to do that. But just remember, take care of yourself, take care of your fellow Yu-Gi-Oh players, and just kind of enjoy. If you're going to be out in public and enjoying it with everyone, let's make it a safe environment for everyone to be in. So
Yes.
that's my closing argument, as if I was an ace attorney. That's what I'll say. So, Yu-Gi-Oh has clearly been in the headlines, but it is not the only series that has been drawing plenty of news. I will now posit my next case with my queen, Hatsune Miku, my Vocaloid princess. If you are not aware, Hatsune Miku is one of the OG Vocaloids, really kind of set forth the whole idea of virtual idols, and really kind of helped spearhead the VTuber kind of environment we have these days. Well, she's on tour. Miku Expo is here. It is going through North America, and it has upset just about everybody I've seen online. If you are aware at all of what Hatsune Miku shows look like, they are traditionally done, whether in Japan or globally, with hologram technology. So whether that's through projectors and glass or various screens or camera projections, Hatsune Miku's traditionally brought to life in 3 dimension without anything like that. Looking at what the show has provided for Miku Expo, that's not what we got. We got a big, like 15-foot LED screen that's just black in the background, and Hatsune Miku appears on it in 2D, dancing around and singing. That's not what fans signed up for. They did not buy tickets to the expo, assuming that this would be the case. Videos very quickly started to appear of the performance on TikTok, on Reddit, on X, Twitter, whatever you want to call it, of people saying free Hatsune Miku, because understandably their Vocaloid queen was just stuck on a screen, which isn't what they expected. And luckily the Hatsune Miku fandom is very lovely, and they all still had a lovely time with their light sticks and chants, and enjoyed the show just being with other fans. But it was definitely a letdown to not see Hatsune Miku in her full holographic or hologram glory, considering previous Miku expos have used that technology. So at first, fans thought maybe the issue was just budget reasons. Maybe the hologram technology wasn't quite ready to be set up. Then they realized, wait a second, Hatsune Miku is supposed to be at Coachella, which is insane. That's an insane statement for me to say, right? Hatsune Miku is going to be at Coachella. Well, she went to Coachella. Everyone thought, well, maybe the technology's been in California to prepare for that show. Lo and behold, it's still the screen at Coachella, arguably one of the biggest, most publicized venues Hatsune Miku has performed at globally, and they don't have a hologram technology. Maybe I'm just a jaded fan, but like, what a missed opportunity, right? Am I crazy here?
Yeah, well, that's how I feel so out of touch when you're saying all this, because I thought it was just the screen. So hearing that it was like a little more elaborate is sort of mind blowing to me. Like they go full Tupac hologram with this thing.
Yeah, they do. I mean, the quality's usually. I mean, the quality isn't as I will say, as detailed as something like when they bring Tupac to life, because that they're trying to emulate a real human, and Hatsune Miku is clearly an anime girl, and I acknowledge that she is not a real person.
It's good to put that statement out there, Megan. It's really good.
Hatsune Miku, not a real person.
Hatsune Miku is not real, just in my dreams. But yeah, they used to bring her to life in holograms. I mean, there's some epic shows that she's had in Japan with other Vocaloids within her same company that they bring them to life. And even for Vocaloid or like virtual idol shows that they do with LED screens over in Japan, they are elaborate. I mean, there's screens everywhere. The whole stage becomes essentially a screen. If you haven't seen the videos I'm talking about, just press pause, take a second, go look up the screen I'm talking about. It's just a black screen on a normal stage with Hatsune Miku dancing and singing on it without any background. So she's just essentially appearing in the void. You're looking into the void, and it is looking back at you. And it's a pretty small screen, so it doesn't give you the illusion that the rest of the stage is gone. Half the time is covering up the band that's playing with Hatsune Miku. They fixed that for Coachella. But like, I can't believe on a stage like Coachella, and I mean, maybe there were here's the thing. I would say maybe there were technological restrictions that prevented Coachella from doing this. But here's the thing. Lana Del Rey had a hologram of herself performing at Coachella, and she was actually there. She was on stage with a hologram of herself. So if
they
Lana
couldn't lend
Del
that
Rey
technology.
yeah, I mean, mean, I'm sorry, my voice is getting really high and really squeaky. But if you're gonna let Lana Del Rey do it, who is my queen, let my other queen, Hatsune Miku, have it. Like, I can't. I'm so confused. I'm so confused. It's not even like they didn't have other hologram performances at the show the same weekend. And they gave, anyways, I am one of the people. I considered going to the Miku Expo. I've never been able to attend before, and clearly I am invested in Hatsune Miku. And I'll just say I'm glad I didn't bother, because I would have had to have traveled. It would have been a whole ordeal. And yeah, I would have just seen a screen. I'll just watch it on my computer at this point.
Yeah, I mean,
I
it's a shame. It's a shame because Coachella, it was a good year for anime and Coachella anyway. Yoasobi performed, and they performed the idol from Oshinoko, the opening theme for Frieren Beyond Journey's End. And so, like, Hatsune Miku would have been the icing on the cake, but I guess it didn't work out.
Right, Atarashi Gakko was there. They performed Tokyo Calling, and it was like the most hype performance. Like,
I think that
broke my heart.
I'd kind of mentioned it before we started a little, but like the advantages of effectively creating your band or your singer or your musical performance as an animated character really works, and obviously Hatsune Miku is a big example of that. But like especially like the US has the Gorillas. Well, not really the US. They're more out of England, and they're like one of my favorite. I went to see them about like 6 years ago, and they were one of my favorite shows ever because they were able to incorporate like the technology so well with like the band members behind like the screens and everything. You could see their silhouettes and all that, as well as it's kind of like professional wrestling in a sense, where you're able to create this lore for the performers and everything. Like the Gorillas lore is like wild when you really look into it. Like they added a member of the Powerpuff Girls Gangrene Gang to their band at one point. And I'm sure I'm not as familiar with Hatsune as Megan, but like I'm sure she has like a big like story happening in the background, right?
Yeah, I mean, depending on the show, not for this recent tour, but like there's a whole lore and history behind her and the other Vocaloids that are part of her kind of company's troupe. So like, yeah. Anyways,
Yeah.
if you're planning to see Miku Expo, just temper your expectations. It's basically what I can tell you. It is definitely not what you will expect, but luckily the Hatsune Miku fandom is cool enough and gracious enough. You're gonna have a fun time either way. So that's kind of where we stand on that. All right. This topic, I'm sure Evan will have plenty to talk about because we are bringing up. Yeah, he's already rubbing his hands. He's ready. We are bringing up his series de jour. We are going to talk about Vinland Saga because the creator of the manga, is now saying that the finale, the series finale, is a lot closer to going live than we ever expected. So, Evan, break it down for me. What's happening?
Sure. So, Vinland Saga, much like a lot of other manga, kind of like One Piece and some other series, has been going for. It first started as a manga in 2005 from creator Makoto Yukimura, and we here at Comicbook.com had the opportunity to talk with him. One of the greatest interviews ever. Go ahead and revisit it. He's setting the stage for Thorfinn's story to be finished, and a big part of Vinland Saga has always been Thorfinn. Well, it became effectively Thorfinn looking for a land of peace in a world where violence and strife and just a lot of terrible things are rewarded. And this is kind of a big difference with manga in general versus, say, North American comic books like Spider-Man or Justice League or Batman or Superman. Is that a lot of manga will be mostly watched over by one person for the most part, and they do have endings in mind. So Vinland Saga is joining a number of other manga series that are currently in the throes of their final arc, as it were, like My Hero Academia, One Piece, Jujutsu Kaisen, and several others. So the stage is kind of being set for an ending for Thorfinn to kind of see if he can find that place. Now, last year when we actually talked with Makoto, one of the things that he said was that he did have a spin-off in mind that would kind of explore a part of Thorfinn's story that was happened off panel, which was his adventures in Istanbul, which could potentially still happen. I'll be sad. I mean, obviously, I'll be sad to see Vinland Saga go, and I'm trying to be as spoiler-free as possible in talking about this. I'll be sad to see it go, but it's clear that Yukimura has an idea in mind, and the stage is kind of, all the pieces are kind of aligning for Vinland Saga to come to an end. The third season of the anime has yet to be confirmed, but there's certainly like a lot of material there that they can venture forth into the future, whether they want to have Mappa or Wit take that third season, or hey, maybe JC Staff jumps on it. Who knows? Yeah, it's setting the stage for the ending, and I'm really looking forward to seeing how Thorfinn's story wraps.
Dang. Well,
Mhm.
I mean, given how just insanely good and how thorough Vinland Saga has been so far, definitely
Mhm.
interested to see how it all wraps up with Thorfinn's journey. I'm sure it's going to give us plenty of stuff to cry about.
Oh
So,
yeah,
yeah,
that's
just come into this news with tissues in hand because we're going to cry.
there.
Confirmed.
There aren't many anime that are able to completely shift a story from one. It almost feels like it changes genres almost from that first season to that second, where the first season is way more about like war and kind of the glorification of violence, whereas the second season really takes a step back from that and looks at like the advantages of farming and kind of like it's wild, but it makes for one of the greatest anime seasons of all time. But like how you can work to find peace in your life, and how you can do that in a world where peace is so looked down upon and everything. And I'm looking forward to see what themes and what as Megan said, I'm sure there won't be a dry eye in the house when Vinland Saga does release its final chapter.
Yes. Well, we'll have to wait and see how that comes. We have no timeline for what this finale will look like,
Mhm.
but the end of a chapter always, it's hard to see, but luckily for our last kind of news item today, we're going to talk about, the start of a new chapter for a different series entirely. Last week we got a pretty big update on Avatar: The Last Airbender, which we are major fans of on this show. Obviously, the series has been on a high with its live action adaptation over at Netflix, but the animated series is still pushing ahead. So if you did not know, Nickelodeon kind of founded Avatar Studios several years back with the series creators of Avatar: The Last Airbender to basically revive the animated series and produce new content. They announced that a movie is what their first project would be at Avatar Studios that is set for a 2025 release. And we got three pieces of major news. One, we got the working title for this series. It's called Aang: The Last Airbender, which we know will focus an older version of Aang and his friends. So I'm assuming that this is going to be like young adult Aang, before the events, well before the events of the Legend of Korra, essentially.
Mhm.
So I'm thinking it won't be too far removed from the original series. Aang, I would, ideally probably be like what, 17, 18, maybe
I
20.
was
I
I was
think.
thinking more mid-20s, I thought.
See,
Kind
I
of
think
from
I don't think that. I think he had kids when he was kind of young with
Mm.
Katara, so I'm thinking he's probably like in his late teens.
Mm.
But we'll see. We don't have any definitive information. We're just speculating on this at this point. But we also have a couple of other confirmed pieces of information. One, the film will feature an original villain that we've never met before, who will be voiced by Dave Bautista, our
Wild,
lovely,
Yeah.
wild.
lovely Drax from Guardians of the Galaxy. And more importantly for me as a K-pop fan, the new voice of Aang is Eric Nam, who is somebody who I'm very familiar with from the K-pop sphere. He's a very popular singer in South Korea. He kind of got his start there in entertainment after appearing on a singing talent show. And he's recently focused more attention on, you know, Hollywood and American entertainment. Given that he's from here, he's from I think he's from the Atlanta area. So there's one
Oh,
for you,
cool.
Evan.
There you go.
So we have a new voice of Aang coming from a K-pop star. We have a former WWE star as the villain, and this movie is, so far as we know it, Aang the Last Airbender. So what are we thinking about this?
Well,
I kind
oh
I
yeah,
kind
Nick,
of
you go
hope
first.
the reports of like it being like a trilogy work out, because I know there have been so many conflicting things of like what these movies could do, what they might do, all that, etc., etc. But I like the idea of a new trilogy kind of bridging the gap in between Avatar: The Last Airbender and The Legend of Korra, and this is kind of like the setting the stage for that. Especially if you have Dave Bautista as a villain, I don't really want him as a one-off either, because what Airbender has done so well, and what we've seen contrasted with the Netflix version, is that its villains are built over time, and you do lose that in a movie event. It'll
Mhm.
be. I don't want it to feel like a non-canon movie where we see it and you're
Mhm.
like, oh yeah, that's the thing. Like I want it to feel more like Dragon Ball Z Battle of God style, where they introduce Beerus, but then Beerus becomes like a full part of the canon, and we see him in multiple appearances later on. So I hope, I really hope the report of the trilogy works out. Like I want to see that more so than like three separate movies taking on separate things.
Mm. What about you, Evan?
Um, yeah, I mean, I've been loving everything that I've been hearing about the movies in general. I think some folks will probably like a little disheartened at the fact that they didn't get like the original casts back to do like the adult voices, but I understand like why they're kind of moving in that direction. There's actually like while the ending of the original animated series was pretty conclusive in the fact that they defeated Fire Lord Ozai, and Zuko takes the crown and takes the throne and everything of the Fire Nation, there's still like so much story to be told between
Hmm.
when Aang and his friends were, I mean, they were just like, Aang was what, like 11 in the series, and he like, I know that time kind of moves forward to the point where maybe he's like 14 or 15, but he's still like a kid at that point. And
Oh
so
yeah,
being
he's
able to,
definitely still like small child.
yeah, very much still a small child. And for folks who want to like I do recommend, like, if folks want to, if they can't wait until next year, Dark Horse Comics actually made a couple of kind of
Hmm.
series sequels and spin-offs that were I think it was called Avatar: The Last Airbender: The Promise, where
Yeah.
you kind of look into Zuko searching for his mother, which was like one of the biggest plot hole, or not plot holes, but one of the biggest plot lines that wasn't like concluded in the original animated series.
Hmm.
And so I hope they kind of touch upon that a little bit. I am super excited that like Dave Bautista is going to be the villain, because like obviously as a wrestling fan, like Dave he was a good wrestler, but he's also like, he's an amazing actor. He's been really good.
Yeah.
Like if you all saw, obviously we saw it, but for our listeners and everything, if you saw The Boy and the Heron, he plays the, man, what is this? The Pigeon King or something?
Yes.
Or the
Whatever that parakeet king is or
the
whatever.
parakeet king or whatever. And he does a good job there. So like, as Nick kind of said, I hope that this is there are always like conflicting reports on, and we have to look through a lot of different reports in terms of what is real and what isn't. There have been reports that like the trilogy of movies won't necessarily just focus on Aang's story, but also like one movie might focus on Aang and one might focus on Korra and another might focus on Kyoshi, or something like that, where they're all
Mhm.
kind of looking at different parts of the bending universe. But I do hope that this first foray into Aang as an older teenager, or prospectively like a young adult, kind of opens the levees to give us more adventures of, because there's so many years that we don't know what like happened to Aang and his friends
Mhm.
before the Legend of Korra. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. I think, like, especially with the original creators on board and they're molding this story, like, it's in good hands.
Absolutely. And to reiterate what, Evan said, looking at the amount of extra content there is surrounding the Avatar Last Airbender universe in terms of comics with Dark Horse. You have The Promise, and that led to its own sequel, which right now those are being adapted into chapters on webtoons that you can read for
Mhm.
free. So you literally have no excuse to not check out these Avatar Last Airbenders canon kind of content that the show never adapted. It's on webtoon right now to free, or you can get like the entire graphic novels themselves from Dark Horse. But there's a lot of really good content that, could easily be explored. Avatar Studios has said time and again it is interested in expanding the animated series, not just in theaters, but with new shows, new specials. So far, we just know about this 2025 film that'll be directed in part by Lauren Montgomery, who worked on the original Avatar series, as well as Netflix Voltron show. Any shout out to anybody who watches that like me religiously. So that's what we're looking like with Avatar. Of course, we'll have to see kind of the full cast list. So far, we know that Aang has a new actor. Obviously, his original voice actor has kind of taken a step back from Hollywood. And it looks like Dante Basco, who is the original voice of Zuko, will be returning to keep Zuko in line. So we'll see what happens. This is kind of our first update. Obviously, as it is April 2024, we'll be getting more updates on this movie before it goes live next year. So stay tuned for that. But now we have to pay for the show, go to a quick break. But when we come back, we're going to be talking about One Punch Man and its live action future now that it's in the hands of Dan Harmon, the co-creator of Rick and Morty. Hello, and welcome back to Anime Initiative, the show where we talk all things anime, manga, animation, and just general geeky news that, the three of us love to cover. We are now going to talk about One Punch Man, which is honestly the headline this week that I did not see coming. So briefly, let me lay out some context for everybody that's listening. One Punch Man is a series. And it's hard to describe, but it's a satire, it's superheroes. It's absolutely nuts. There are 2 seasons to its name. The manga is ongoing. There's a 3rd season coming. Back in 2021, basically Sony Pictures and Sony Entertainment kind of went live and said, "Hey, we have licensed One Punch Man for a live action adaptation." At the time, they brought in Scott Rosenberg and Jeff Pinkner to come in and write the script. Well, yesterday, the Hollywood Reporter came in just really quietly, was talking about Justin Lin, who's set to direct this live action adaptation. And at the very bottom of that article, it was, covering for Justin Lin. The last sentence was literally, Justin Lin is still working on One Punch Man with new writers, Dan Harmon and Heather Ann Campbell, who are rewriting the script. And I read this yesterday. And then I stopped and I said, wait, what? That is why is that the last sentence of this article? Why is this not a breaking news headline elsewhere? Because for those who do not know, Dan Harmon is a veteran within the industry. You will know him best for his work, obviously co-creating Rick and Morty, but also bringing Community to life and working on that. And Heather Ann Campbell has also worked on Rick and Morty and has an extensive history with, comedy projects, including Whose Line Is It Anyways? So to say that this is a big deal is kind of an understatement. And I immediately texted both Nick and Evan, like, oh my gosh, Dan Harmon and Heather Ann Campbell are working on One Punch Man now to rewrite the script. So what are you guys thinking about this? Nick, I know you have the most investment in Rick and Morty. You are our Rick and Morty man. So tell me your thoughts. Tell me your feelings.
Right. As our Rick and Morty lead, I would say, just in terms of steering the ship. But yeah, so it's pretty big. Dan Harmon's big in itself, but Heather Ann Campbell, she's only been with the series in writing terms for the past couple of seasons. And notably is wrote some of the best episodes of season 7. One of them, That's Amore, which was the spaghetti episode. And Evan might know. Yeah,
she wrote that script or worked on it.
Yeah. The spaghetti episode was hers. So the spaghetti episode was huge, as well as the finale, Fear No More, which was one of the best Morty stories we've gotten in a long time. So that's why this news is pretty big, because it's not only Dan Harmon's a big name and all that stuff, but it's Heather Ann Campbell that really has that little bit of like, oh, that's where it's really interesting, because her scripts that we've seen, she also did Final Destination, which was good, but it was That's Amore, Fear No More are like the big ones that we've seen, and those episodes have layers. It's not just the comedy. You get like these really hard-hitting emotional beats as well. And that's not something you really particularly you don't really associate that with One Punch Man, but as we've seen with series with Creator One's series like Mob Psycho 100, it's that emotional layer that you can really dig into. And Saitama, the way that character will work in a movie is bringing that part of the character to life. He is a comedic foil, but you need just that little bit of extra for like a fully realized person version of him. And so bringing that little extra layer will help this succeed in the long run and make it a much different project than the anime.
Oh, absolutely. What do you think, Evan? Where do you stand on this directional shift?
When Megan, when you pinged us on this, I couldn't believe I couldn't believe my ears on it, because it's Dan Harmon and Heather Ann Campbell are perfect picks for this, because as Nick kind of mentioned, they have made, obviously, like, Dan Harmon helped create Rick and Morty, and his co-writer on this helped. I didn't know that she had written some of the best episodes of the series, like, to date.
Me neither.
What's the name of the spaghetti episode again?
That's Amore. That's Amore.
That's Amore.
Yeah.
That's Amore isn't just funny. It's like you examine life and death in it in a very hilarious, very satirical and profound way. And of course, like, I'm a giant Dan Harmon fan. I love Community. It's one of my favorite shows. I love Rick and Morty. And to see him jump onto this project and bringing his irreverent humor, like his style to this, as well as like he's always able to create a lot of heart as well with his projects, which is really something that like is a big part of Saitama's journey as he attempts to try to find an opponent who can actually give him a challenge. I could not be more excited for it. And also, like Dan Harmon specifically with Rick and Morty, this isn't his first time. This won't be his first time venturing into stories with superheroes, as there, of course, was the episode of Rick and Morty that kind of looked at the Vindicators and kind of like created this, you know, pseudo Avengers team in outer space, which is kind of like a lot of the characters in One Punch Man are kind of facsimiles of some heroes, or kind of a twist on North American comic book characters that we've seen in the past. And so I can't wait to see like what Dan Harmon does with this, because I think like when you're creating a live action adaptation, you're trying to do justice to there's like a push and pull between you're trying to do justice to the source material while adding in some new flavors of originality into the story. And like Harmon's kind of feels like the perfect person to help bring that to the One Punch Man movie.
Yeah, I guess it's just a matter of what kind of rewriting they're doing, whether
Right.
it's rewriting the story itself, or are they there for punching up? And like punch ups are just fine. Like that's okay too. You know, what's interesting about this project and how it's shaping up in general already is that it already seems so non-traditional compared to a lot of the live action stuff we've seen, you know. And One Punch Man isn't like, it's not like a One Piece or an Avatar The Last Airbender where we look at it and go, well, there are certain things from the manga we're going to need to see in a live action version. One Punch Man is so like it's so varied in terms of what kind of stories it can tell. You can really just tell a whole new thing that's not really adapting anything at all, and people would be fine with that. And that might be the direction they're going here, something completely original, which I don't think that's entirely a bad idea with this series.
I mean, the thing with One Punch Man that's always interested me is it does have an overarching story, you know, when you're looking at, you know, the Hero Society and the Monsters Association, but so much of it feels episodic. I mean, just an incredible amount of it is episodic. And a lot of the, you know, battles that you're watching, you know, you look at One Punch Man and Saitama's the main man, but he's often like there at the very last minute if he arrives in time at all. I very excited to see what Campbell and Harmon do with Moomin Rider. I just what are they gonna do with
Moomin
my
Rider.
sweet bicycle, my sweet bicycle man. I think that like looking at what this live action adaptation is doing, I think it has very smartly put together an interesting mix of creators. You know, again, we're not sure exactly what Harmon and Campbell are doing in terms of rewrites, but they have a clearly successful history, you know, approaching satire, approaching comedy, approaching, you know, kind of, you know, unsuspecting, you know, the heart of a story. So them paired with whatever Rosenberg and Pinkner set forward, I think will be an interesting combination. Plus we have Justin Lin, who's going to be overseeing as director, and he has just an incredible amount of experience in doing action, in doing fights, and doing kind of big scale productions like that, which of course, One Punch Man, you know it for two things. You know it for its satire, and you know it because it's bonkers fights. So I'm very I would say I'm pretty reassured by kind of the mix of people that they have on this.
Right.
Over on social media, Campbell has tweeted many times over the years that they love One Punch Man. So they are not new to the series. They are true to the series. They know what Saitama's about. They know what Genos is about. This isn't, you know, too surprising for them. So seeing this kind of evolution for a live action adaptation, especially when you compare it to what the history of anime and live action and Hollywood looks like, is pretty reassuring to me. It's only been within the last, you know, couple of years that anime has really gotten an authentic shot with live action adaptations in Hollywood. You look at One Piece, you look at things like Avatar: The Last Airbender, you know, those have done incredibly well as TV series. You look at things like Alita Battle Angel. You know, people might have forgotten that unless you are a diehard fan like myself. Like, that movie did incredibly well at the box office. Um, so, you know, kind of piecing all these things together, the most important thing I think in those successful projects, what happened behind the scenes is they had fans working on it. They were clear-cut fans that were able to both advocate for the most important core aspects of the series while having the professional know-how to decide when things needed to be cut, when things needed to be added. That is incredibly important, and I think that One Punch Man is setting up a creative team in the crew to make that happen. Um, so I'm pretty excited about it, honestly.
I, I think that one of the things that I think that a lot of studios, and obviously like Sony Pictures is attempting to do it, I think here is that there are a lot of movie studios that are searching for their own Marvel Cinematic Universe. I think that
Mhm.
there are, especially like with Netflix, I think that we have heard a lot of different live action anime adaptation projects. Like Netflix is working on a Gundam movie, and there's like the My Hero Academia live action movie, and there's Attack on Titan, which was by Warner Brothers, and it was going to be directed by the guy who did The Flash and all of these different things. But I think, like Megan, as you said, like especially with like One Piece and Avatar: The Last Airbender on Netflix, those projects have kind of, I felt like they opened the floodgates where more and more of these projects are starting to be greenlit, and they're starting to get like more well-known people that are jumping on them, because like especially looking at One Punch Man is effectively kind of its own Marvel Cinematic Universe, in the fact that like if One Punch Man is successful, the movie, wouldn't you want to see a movie about Moomin Rider? Wouldn't you want to see a movie about Puri Puri
See,
Prisoner?
that's the thing. See, that's the thing. No, the answer is no, because like what One Punch Man does is that it's all, you know, fighting until Saitama shows up, right? And that's a lot
Mhm.
of the gimmick for the early arcs until Saitama's literally off doing his own thing. And then,
Mhm.
you know, we're getting what we're getting in like season 4 and 5 of the anime, where it's just all the heroes fighting monsters for like hundreds of chapters, and you're like, all right, I'm done with this. And so that's the thing. I don't think One Punch Man has that kind of strength of its characters that it can sustain a whole universe of spin-off projects. That's why I think if they do tackle this, it does need to be like just an original thing. We have like,
Mm.
you know, we have Moomin Rider, we have our wacky characters here in this first movie. We enjoy it. If there's a sequel, cool. Don't try and adapt an overall story. I really think the way a One Punch Man movie will succeed is just doing its own thing, because if not, it will fall into the trap of the anime of adapting a story that, you know, you're not going to see Saitama for like a long time, and a movie ain't gonna cut that, you know, like you
Yeah.
can't cut out your mascot character, you know, you can't just do that. It's that I don't that unfortunately, Evan, like I don't agree that we're gonna
Mhm.
want to see a Puri Puri Prisoner movie or something like that. No, like I don't think there's a strength in that. The strength is these characters last as long as they do and fight as hard as they do and develop as well as they do, because a Saitama is there to save the day when things go bad, or a
Mhm.
Saitama is there
Mm.
doing his own wacky thing. Like that's the thing. It's because of Saitama. And as we've seen in the manga, once you remove Saitama from the equation for a, a long extent of time, it just does not work as well. And so
Mm.
that's unfortunate. I hate to like stop on that point, Evan, but
Oh
I
no,
do
no, it's
not
fine.
I do
Well,
not
I
agree
think
that this would support a universe. But I do think this one movie could work.
Mhm.
I think both of the points here are valid. I don't think that this spans off, you know, like a Spider-Man, Venom,
Right.
Madam Web
Mhm.
kind of situation here with One Punch Man. I think it could spawn off sequels if these stories are self-contained. The
Yes.
the investment One Punch Man builds up to keep fans involved is they make you laugh really hard in the first third of the series. So you're invested, you get kind of, you know, I mean, yeah, you just kind of get invested. You really know these characters and you're waiting for the payout. You're waiting for the punchline of Saitama to show up. That's kind of how the manga is able to go through. Plus, there is the very, very present fact that the, One Punch Man manga is overseen by Yusuke Murata, who is one of the greatest artists of his generation. So it's just pretty to look at, which is something that is difficult, if not impossible, to replicate in live action. It's different visual effects, and maybe I'll be proven wrong. I think One Punch Man has the ability, if it kind of creates original endings and capstones for, fights and arcs, that a satirical series like this could work very well. We don't really have, we have, as Comicbook.com, we are so aware of the phrase superhero fatigue. Like, we're very aware of what that means. And there's, examples of that being very much the case. And then there's examples of that being very much not the case. When you look at things that are new, like Invincible, that have a different take, you look at The Boys, you look at things that give a different angle. And aside from something kind of like Deadpool, there's really nothing like One Punch Man in the game right now that I feel in the
Yeah,
big superhero
great
market.
point.
So it's definitely something that is new and it's fresh and that's intriguing. I think with the creative team that they have behind it currently, if this film is able to get you in on the joke quick enough and it has a nice satisfying ending, it can repeat that, you know, storytelling, narrative in sequels. I don't think they're gonna, branch off to be something specific, Moomin Rider, the trek across, whatever. Like that, that's hilarious for me to see, but that doesn't need to be, a live action Hollywood project. So
I mean, we were talking about Dave Bautista earlier, and if you need someone who looks good bald,
oh my god.
Oh man.
I don't know. That's just me thinking of bald people who look good on screen, but like that's something else too. Like you can't do a bald cap on somebody. It's got to be someone you shave.
Well, they're gonna have to dedicate. They're gonna have to pull, Karen Gillan. They're gonna have to do the Nebula. They're gonna have to shave. They're going bald. It's unavoidable, and that's okay. So,
and that's the thing. Like, you know how live action movies kind of adjust costumes and stuff. Saitama's can't look good. That's like his whole gimmick is like
to be lazy. Like,
yeah,
it has
to.
The Henry Cavill superhero Superman. Like, keep the undies. Like, keep the whole homemade cosplay effect. That's what I want.
Yeah, it's really like if they can nail that stuff in the production, I think this will knock it out of the park. The question though is if this one comes out before My Hero Academia, does it like kind of knock out the wind of the sails of, like Megan was saying, like the superhero anime adaptations? Like if this one lands and then My Hero Academia comes out and we're like, oh, well, it's not as good as One Punch Man.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I mean, looking at what is kind of on the plate, I mean, one of the biggest things in terms of live action, aside from the things we've already seen, is most recently Lionsgate appeared at CinemaCon and they talked about, they brought up Naruto. And we have that coming forward. We know Destin Daniel Critton is going to be in charge of directing it, who oversaw Shang-Chi for Marvel. So Masashi Kishimoto, the creator of Naruto, has given his 100% blessing to this. We don't know really anything beyond that in terms of, whether the scripting, obligations have changed. Is Kishimoto involved? There's a lot of questions that we have there, but, that was on the CinemaCon plate that, Lionsgate is actively pursuing projects, like Naruto. We have My Hero Academia. Akira has been put on the back burner, but it's still being talked about. We have Attack on Titan in that same situation, as well as Your Name. I mean, they just kind of keep coming. The hits keep coming and they don't stop coming. Like that's kind of how it is. And there's been a lot of interesting conversation, within the fandom online. You have manga in Japan and it does well. So they make an anime to promote the manga. Well, now are they going to start making live action movies to promote popular anime to promote popular manga? How Inception does this get? We don't have that information at this point. But now that there's been not one, but several kind of successful both, in terms of critical ratings, but also in, profits to the company, these live action adaptations, given just how big anime and manga are becoming globally. I mean, this is kind of a big rock rolling down a hill. It's just going to
Mhm.
gain momentum and power as it goes. So, One Punch Man is kind of the latest piece of news to join that rock, making it that much more formidable.
I think that and you kind of mentioned it in terms of the inception levels of it, because Japan has kind of, for a lot of anime
Mhm.
stuff, it has created live action movies.
So
Do
many live
not watch
action.
do not watch the Attack on Titan live action movie. out of
I don't know.
Japan.
I did like part 2 because of how wild it is in terms
Oh,
of like this is a thing they made,
it came up with its own story for like
Yeah.
what was actually happening, and that was fascinating. It wasn't
Yeah.
good, but it was
No,
fascinating.
no, absolutely not. That's the proper word to use for it, Evan. Yeah.
and
Alright.
like an example of, I'll say this till the day I die, like an example of an amazing live action adaptation, which I think is even better than the anime, is the Kenshin movies, the trilogy of Kenshin movies that they had made, which are so good. In the
Mhm.
live action ones that were made in Japan, they were made by Warner Brothers. But there are examples, like there's the Full Metal Alchemist trilogy that had come out. There's the Bleach movies, and
The
all these
Bleach
other
Bleach
things. And
movie. Bleach
The
movie.
the
the
single
Bleach,
movie it
the
slapped.
RIP
one
Bleach,
movie.
like the one great Bleach movie we got out of that.
Oh my god, it was so
Yeah.
good. Yeah, I
So
mean,
it's like,
that's very true. There's the JoJo movie. There's
Yeah.
several
yeah,
JoJo live action
directed by Takeshi Miike, which is like nuts. But it was just the first half of Diamond is Unbreakable. It didn't work, but it was fascinating
Yeah.
to see. So like, it's Hollywood is playing catch up. As I kind of said earlier, like One
Right.
Piece and Avatar have kind of helped open the floodgates for that. I'm anxious to see what Lionsgate does with Naruto, especially because it does have Masashi Kishimoto on board. And if you did see Shang-Chi and the Ten Rings, like some of that is very Naruto-esque. There are parts of it that are kind of good for that. So you couldn't ask for like a better director on that, really.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting seeing this live action kind of push, a very dedicated industry-wide push for anime live action in Hollywood. Again, they are playing catch up with Japan, and I'll say this, I mean, Netflix globally brought Yu Yu Hakusho's live action out
Mhm.
to the public, and it performed extremely well for the service. So, given as the world becomes smaller with technology and streaming, just in the same way that anime blew up because of these outlets, live action projects from, everywhere from K-dramas to, Japanese adaptations are also becoming bigger. So it's going to become a more competitive zone to pay attention to. Before it was kind of like a novelty situation, like, oh, Jitama's getting a live action adaptation in Japan. Well, now it looks like these are going to be becoming more and more viable and serious contenders, in the global entertainment market. So, with that said, that's kind of where we're at with live action anime. One Punch Man has brought Dan Harmon and Heather Ann Campbell on board. So we will, send them all the good vibes. Give them, send them telepathically. Let them know we are supportive and that they can do this. We believe. So, if you want to talk to us about anything and everything we talked about on the show today, if you have questions about One Punch Man, if you want to know about my personal thoughts on Hatsune Miku, you want to talk to Nick about Yu-Gi-Oh, you want to talk to Evan about Vinland Saga, you can hit us up on social media. You can find me at Megan Peters CB. Nick, where can they find you?
You can find me at Valdizology on all the socials, as well as Pop Culture Social Call with Anna Ruber.
Awesome. And what about you, Evan?
You can find me at EV Comedy on all the socials.
Awesome. Well, please get in contact. Listen what you think. If you want to leave us a review for Anime Initiative, wherever you get your podcast, whether you listen to us on, Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your favorite shows, leave us a 5-star review. Leave us a nice comment. Ask us some questions about anime. We are more than happy to talk to you guys and out ourselves and all of our weird anime choices. I'm here for it. I don't mind. I don't know about the rest of you here, but I'll personally contest. I will say whatever needs to be said. So with that in mind, if you want to find more geeky news about all things, nerdy, Comic Book Nation is your place. We have the main show that is hosted, but we also have Quick Save, which is our gaming podcast, as well as the Pull List, which focuses on comics. And of course, we have Phase Zero, and a wild podcast has appeared here at Comicbook.com. So give those a listen. Hit us up on social media. And until next week, we'll talk to you then.